Here is a quick word about continental philosophy. Uh, Continental philosophy, what is that? Well, it's a number of things, but most of all, it's a way of communicating. I think it's a way of communicating using the medium of irony. And as I've explained or hinted at or strongly suggested before, I guess I've done all three. Uh, Irony is the ability to see things in double. You see what things probably should be like, and you see what they are like, and you put those two differences together as a comparison, and you go, oh, that's pretty funny. That's really weird. That's humorous, or that's tragic, or that evokes pathos. It can be anything, but you're putting two different ideas together. It's like the way we see in 3D. If I look just through that eye, I'm seeing a flattened panel of colors and shapes in front of me. If I look only through that, it's a similar thing, except actually I'm a little bit more short-sighted in the eye that was not covered. But when we put them both together, we see in 3D. Suddenly we go, woo, that's how it is. I didn't see it before. And that's the medium of continental philosophy. It's why it sometimes seems kind of a weird or mystical language, because it relies on the expectation that you have the ability to see like this. See in duality, not just see with one eye. Don't be one-eyed. See the complexity, see what it is, and see what it isn't. We're talking about an object, for example. It could be anything. It could be a concept, or it could be it could be a material object. But it works better with concepts. You see what this concept indicates, and then you see, by virtue of seeing what it tries to indicate in the human realm, you see what it isn't. And the way I just said it there was very important too, because it's with concepts. You're dealing with structures that want to be absolute. They kind of, it's like they have almost an internal aim of their own to be universal, to encapsulate everything. And yet, because they are human concepts, and humans are not everything, humans are finite, our perceptions are finite, and limited and faulty as well, but fundamentally finite, and therefore don't embrace omniscience, fall very much short of seeing everything and therefore of understanding everything. The concepts betray themselves. Concepts aim to be like this fundamental standard. The concept of God is the standard of this absolute thing that's supposedly is above and over us all, and doesn't change. It never changes. And yet we have human concepts of God, which are inevitably, God is conceptualized by humans, so our concept is in fact always changing, even though we assert and believe and act as if the concept is never shifting. It's difficult to wrap your mind around it, around the sense of what concepts are and what concepts make us think in relation to their practical capacity Let me try that again. It's very difficult to see that there's a gap between our projections into the universal and the fact that it's just a projection that we are engaging in, and a manner of extending our own consciousness into a realm that is actually idealized. It's not. It's not real, except that we believe it to be real, and to the extent that we do, we push toward that concept becoming a reality. This is difficult stuff. This has to do also with reification, the way that we tend to make our concepts real to ourselves by acting as if they were real, and then they become real. So even if initially there wasn't really any natural difference between men and women, let's suppose, or high and low, when we start to act as if there is a fundamental and unshifting difference, it makes it so. We reify our concepts. We turn them into realities, concrete expressions of how we feel. Yes, it does make you pause. It ought to make you pause. It ought to make you re-examine everything. It's the fundamental nature of irony, the fact that we do that, the fact that we create the realities that we presume to be outside of ourselves, and then they actually do become outside of ourselves because we create that reality by our belief system. And it's not just that we do it that way, but it's one of our tendencies, it's one of our human foibles, and to some degree human faults, that we do it. We have this perceptual confusion about what's in my head and what's out there, and concepts themselves, because they have that zingy kind of very powerful, potent sense of representing the absolute. We get absorbed in concepts. We self-hypnotize, and so we become hypnotized by our own notions and concepts and ideas and values, and then we think they're outside of us. And then, of course, we make them outside of us. If I keep treating somebody in a particular way because of my concept, then they will probably succumb to becoming what I think they are through projective identification, eventually. So continental philosophy treats concepts ironically. And that's a key point to try to keep in mind when reading anything from that tradition. When Bataille talks about a neurotic, that's a phenomena. So I say a phenomenon. That is phenomena. That's not a person. That's not a human being. That's a phenomenon. A neurotic is a phenomenon. That's the only intellectually rigorous way to treat it. God is a phenomenon. that's intellectually rigorous. We must treat God as a human. Well, I am saying a human phenomenon, but intellectually, in the most rigorous sense, it's not something that we ought to treat as a thing. So when the term God is used, it's used ironically, in the sense that there's a doubling of the vision between the concept of absolute meaning and the human, very limited, very finite, very contingent generation of that meaning. Of course, you have to be an atheist to see things this way. I should have explained. Yes. So I wanted to say also the same thing with fragility. You know, this notion that there are no, actually, let me make it clear, there are no fragile people, but there are fragile phenomena. And when we get rid of the deity conceptualization, in the sense that we don't have a naive or intellectually unrigorous reaction to this deity concept, if I may, deity concept, then we feel that life is fragile. This is not a psychological state as such, although it is, but it's a response to a deeper understanding of how the universe really is structured, as opposed to how it once seemed to be structured when we made things seem overly stable through our very stable conceptual notions. We made things seem that way, and then we realized that they are not how they seemed. The stability is a projection. And it's ironic when we do that. It's a funny thing. It's funny to see that we are doing that and we continue to do it. And basically, we're kind of programmed because of our generation of concepts to make things seem more stable than they are. They're not that stable at all. They are fragile. So I know this seems like it's been a bit rambling, but I assure you that it's very difficult to address these topics as they are understood by the continental philosophical stream, and you do need to embrace atheism, not mysticism, to be able to grasp even a hint of them. And it's a complex thing. Very complex indeed. I'll stop there.